You're listening to the voices of the Occultinarium. Enter our circle and listen to what stirs.
Hello and welcome to tonight's episode of the Occultinarium. We are the voices of the Occultinarium, and this night's hosts are
Luigi,
Emily,
Adriana,
and Lynn. Welcome. So tonight's episode, we thought about tackling our favorite subject, the tarot, and we wanted to talk about one of the blazing questions or blazing topics about RWS, Thoth, the differences, how they're the same, how they're different, do we use them, why do we use them, what do they mean? So that is tonight's big topic opened. Let's start about talking about the origin of the two decks first, when they were made and by whom.
should
Luigi,
we
would you
start
like
with
to?
the W
Yes.
RWS
The
as
Rider-Waite.
it
Let's start
is
with the-
older?
Yes.
Yes. So Rider-Waite-Smith, already in the name, it's Rider, Waite, and Smith. And tragically, or funnily enough, the Rider part is just the publisher. Waite is the man with the vision and the idea, and Smith, the woman who actually made the cards and made the artwork. Luigi, do you want to say something about?
So yeah, Waite stands for Arthur Edward Waite. Born in New York, or was he born in Brooklyn, New York, I think, but anyway, and then died in the UK. But I'm sure he had UK descendancies anyway, not that it matters. And Smith stands for, like Lynn just said, the artist behind the beautiful Smith deck, Pamela Coleman Smith, also from the UK, and very fun, very close to me in terms of inspiration, in terms of devotion, in terms of admiration. Because like you pointed out as well, a lot of people will refer. So obviously the four of us know each other and we know how we interact and we discuss the deck, etc. But many people might benefit to know that I will never refer to the Smith deck as the Rider-Waite or the Rider-Waite-Smith either, purely because even if you read through history, I suppose, Pamela, also sometimes nicknamed Pixie, she was only paid like a fee and no royalties for the deck that became one of the most popular, commercially popular at least as well, decks in the world, or even in history, I suppose, at this point. So I feel like sometimes we do a disservice by referring to the deck just, what about the Rider-Waite? What about the Waite deck? What about the Rider deck? And never include the powerful name of the person that inspires all of those images, Pamela Coleman Smith. So we'll always refer to it as the Smith deck to give her back some power.
I also
She
found
was-
like in the beginning, so just the RWS deck, but I find myself also more drawn to chucking out the R and just going Smith deck instead, because there's just so much more or there should be more focus on who actually created them. Definitely, I feel not the publisher. I mean, what do they do? You know, they just put it out there. I mean, it's a big job as well, but it's not it's not.
It must have been a thing of the time, because I expect that publishing something, it was a big deal when it came to like just printed things in general. So I guess
Yeah.
that it was a thing of the time, like of the way they printed it, and also because there's so many different colors, so you had to it was like a thing to actually print them. So back in the day, it
Yeah.
makes sense. Maybe now not so much.
Well, it was
Possibly.
published initially in 1909. So it was really the beginning of the 20th century. And they have evolved from the cards that we used to play or in the course and so on, the normal cards, and used more mainly as a tool of divination. As we know perfectly, that is deeper than that. It's talking to you. It's more connected to your subconscious, like the universal consciousness talking to you, more like an archetype, like a guidance, more than I'm going to meet finally the 6 foot tall and blue eye guy that I have been waiting for the past 30 years. But it seems not showing up. But I think that is the thing that I would like to take in consideration, is that despite that is the most famous or popular deck of cards, it have estimated over 100 million copies sold worldwide, in over 20 countries. As well, it has been called for the imagination of people and that mystical side of divination and magic, that we can see it as well in the movies. Also, I have noticed that people are very afraid of cards. They are, particularly if they are religious, they are Christian, Catholic ones, is related to
It's
evil
the devil.
stuff. Yeah. An education thing that we had to do, that to explain to people that something that it has been there is a tool to understand and to heal ourselves, should never consider it something like evil or good or bad. But there is no distinction. Every human emotion belongs to you, so you don't have to put in categories or say, oh, I'm going to be burned in hell, because this lady read my cards, So it's always like an introduction to the cards to explain that there is nothing related to evil, that is completely safe.
Yeah, no, but this is it's kind of a different topic we can get into at some point, because it's very much, it's so much related to how divination in general belongs to witchcraft, and witchcraft has been and is outlawed in a lot of countries. And that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult still for a lot of people to open up to the gypsy craft or the witchcraft, to any form of divination. There are still a lot of countries where it's illegal. There are states in the US where divination is illegal. So I've actually done illegal things. I think I've probably used tarot cards in Minnesota where it is illegal. Come get me. So, but this is like...
Wow.
But that's a different topic to get into at some point. But the thing that, to get back to Pamela Cole Smith and what you mentioned, Adriana, with how it used to be playing cards and people divining with normal playing cards, the thing that I know that she made, or where she made the difference, is that she gave the playing cards and the faces of those, like 5 of clubs and whatnot, she gave them theater. She gave them faces, she gave them scenes, and she has this whole background as a theater person, which is why the cards also have this very theatrical look to them, like particular scenes of a theater sequence. Yeah, and that is Pamela who gave us that. Gave us something actual to read, rather than just, getting off of the top of our heads that, a 5 of clubs might mean so and so. She actually gives us like, okay, well, we call it a 5 of discs and this means so and so, So that is one of the first things that she really did, basically.
I love from this deck is the symbolism. The symbolism of each card is each object, each little draw has a symbolic message for you, for the reader. And I think that is very intimate. It builds up, it helps to build up a relationship with the reader.
I also find that this deck is it's very easy to read intuitively if you don't really have too much of like a background. This is something that you can approach. I know obviously it can be a bit daunting if you feel like I don't know enough, but I find like if you study the deck, it's intuitively, it really helps you a lot with the theatrical scenes on each card.
Speaking of theatrical scenes, the first one, I didn't shuffle, but the first one of mine was here. It's like the 10 of Swords.
What a great first card.
And with that, it's, it's pretty in your face. Like, there's a guy with 10 swords in his bag and you immediately get a feeling from it. You immediately like, and you might not get that in a Thoth, but so it's very visual. It's very like
visually
stimulating. Yeah, very stimulating.
Emily,
and what I also like
to say something.
Yes, she's... Go ahead.
No, because you said like these are the kind of things that you don't really get in the Thoth. I find that Thoth puts emphasis on other things instead. I think like each card, and this is probably why a lot of people think that tarot can be evil, because there are depictions of things that might be very uncomfortable to see. But we have to also understand that, there's both good things and bad things. And to kind of trigger something within us, you need to have a picture that is a little bit shocking. Like having all these swords going through a person's body might be very evil and shocking, but it has to evoke something.
violence of human nature. It's not, But since we're already mentioning Thoth, maybe we should, talk a little bit about who made the Thoth deck, just so that we have that side as well.
But before we get to that, I would like to emphasize the tarot, the difference with the playing cards of divination and so on, is the creation of the major arcanas. And the major arcanas, the archetypes and the power of this card that is related to whatever you want to relate them anyway, with the planets, with, signs, with everything, the houses. Another window that is even deeper, that it gives us as well the correlations of lower arcanas and the major arcanas, that it brings a deeper sense and deeper message. So I think that is what it creates this deck of cards to me. It's like, it's like showing all the aspects of life in a symbolic way, that you can read it in different manners, and according not only per card, but the association the cards are alongside or at the bottom of the deck as well. So there is a lot of different ways how you can relate to the cards.
So maybe we should talk a little bit about the Thoth deck now.
Yes. Crowley, you said it.
He's in the room and he's saying, please talk about it.
Go like, oh my God, it's Aleister Crowley. Famous, furious Aleister Crowley. And again, here it was Alastair who had the visions, or he's made the plans of how a card should look. It was not him actually designing the cards. That was also completely not in his hands. Yeah. Do you want to go talk about that again, Lucy?
That was Frieda Harris.
Yes, it was from Lady Frieda Harris.
Lady Frieda Harris.
I guess it's always an interesting, and I guess in the climate that we live in nowadays, it's also a bit of a sensitive conversation. My feeling is, what we try to do at the best of our abilities. It's never like who's got higher, who gave more to the creation of the deck versus who gave less. I think the flow of life, it's the constant equilibrium, the flux and the reflux and so forth. I just say that to say, because obviously if we look at any given tarot card or any given deck or any given occult tradition, think of the esoteric titles of each major and or minors. There's lots of lords, isn't it? And we can get more into it later on, but specifically with the Thoth deck as well, like Lord of such and such, Lord of such and such. And Crowley, again, because he's so famous, at least still is, but was, as in is no longer alive. Like he made such an impact on, pop culture and many aspects of the cultural scene that we experience as readers, as practitioners, as witches, and so forth. So you may say the name Aleister Crowley, and people will be like, oh yeah, I came across this before. I have a face formulating in front of me, versus Lady Frieda Harris. They might not be even aware of what she looks like. And even with the Smith deck, they might not even be aware of who Pamela is. I think Pamela may have had a bit more of a resurgence in recent years. But I definitely have still am to come across more people that bring forward the name of Frieda versus the name of Crowley. And maybe for a reason, because Crowley did a lot of
stuff,
interesting things. Yeah, I wasn't trying to say what's a good word for it. Interesting things or stuff, like you said. But yeah, I think because even when Frieda and Pamela Pixie, whenever they created something, they still have to submit via letter, I suppose. This is what I've done, Arthur. This is what I've done, Alastair. What do you think of it? And then they will be like, can you change this to that, that to that? So there is constantly a feedback session, isn't it? But I guess one way to look at it is that both Crowley and Waite, they carry the occult knowledge, I suppose. And maybe because at the time we still lived heavily, and still do now, I suppose, to an extent, in a heavy patriarchal society. So maybe the man had more power and more access to certain volumes of knowledge that maybe women didn't have. And even the societies they created, even the Golden Dawn Society, it wouldn't necessarily be, I think they had women in it. But if you look even at the
Pamela
founders,
Coleman Smith
the founders
was
are all
part of it.
Yeah,
I think
she
Pamela
was. She
Coleman Smith
was.
was part, and wasn't Frieda Harris also part of the Golden Dawn?
Yeah,
I was
she was
about to
part of
I
it.
say,
think they were both
But
part of it. Yeah.
they were
Frieda
part.
Harris was the one that was kind of pushing to make the
Yeah,
deck.
she was pushing
Really.
it.
Yeah. I guess what I still have to say is if you look at the founders of the Golden Dawn, like the four men, again, we're talking about the four men. So I guess I'm trying to depict a picture where men are always at the front face of the public or always at the front face of, the given field, even in this field, which is occultism, I suppose. So this is for the listeners to realize that I personally, and I think all of my peers here in the podcast with me, we're all trying to give power back to the beautiful women that have created such beautiful decks, but that's not diminish or disrespect or disregard any of the influence and the genius, even if you want to use that word, that the male participants, the male creators, the male component of the process gave.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one wouldn't exist without the other, really.
Yes, and
Precisely.
I think it's giving birth. It's like the male united to the feminine. They're giving birth to a beautiful thing. So I think it's collaboration more than competition. And we have the skills. The male was the boys. The women were the makers. The creators as well. It's the beauty. The design, the drawing, the artistry that we had to take in consideration as well. Because I think they go hand in hand, and we have to stop probably seeing all the things that happen around us is competing between women and men and just trying to integrate what are the skills that both of us are putting on the table to create things together. But I agree.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of competition already.
Historically, they're trying is to minimize the divine feminine, but at their own expenses because we have things to contribute. And beauty is one of them.
When it comes to Alastair and Frieda, it's very difficult to outshine someone like Alastair because he was just such a character. Let's just say he was just such a character. And he just did so many shocking things. So it's quite obvious. It wouldn't matter if he was a man or a woman. If he was exactly like he was, if that person was like him, they will just, that the shock factor was there. And it's still there, even though we're so used to shock factors. And he was that so long ago. It's just hard to kind of top that.
What I find really cool about the pairing with Crowley and Frieda and with her paintings is that while he maybe have directed her, I think it's only her who had the knowledge about sacred geometry, and she used so much about that with it in her paintings that even we as just onlookers might not even understand what's going on, but it's just this thing of how there's layers and layers behind the layers of a card and just pulls you into things. It's or with a difference, for example, you have the Smith deck and you have a still scene, or you can imagine motion in it, but it's a scene and it's kind of frozen in time and you can intuit on that. And then with that sacred geometry that you have in that you I think notice most in the mages, because there's a lot going on in those, and you're not just looking at a quiet, calm scene, but there's just so much going on. So your eyes go from here to there to there to there. It's there's always a flux in the card, and you might notice something completely different in one reading that you haven't really noticed that much before or not put so much weight on. But
Definitely.
Yeah.
No. I agree with what you said completely. And I think when trying to compare, not that we need to compare, but when trying to compare these two beautiful iconic decks, I guess the best way that you can present them, to any given public, I think the Smith benefits from a level of inclusivity / introductory power, if that's even a term that I can use, easier access, not necessary knowledge of the higher levels of occultism and esotericism. You can simply rely on the beautiful theatrical images that Pixiegate provided us with, whether perhaps with the Thoth deck, depending on what trail of life you're trotting on. you know, or whatever path you want to follow. If you are the magician or the witch or the one that is on the pursuit of knowledge, then the top deck is more like, let me see if I can ascend to the bigger, higher, wider realms, the realms of chaos, the realms of questioning, the realms of mystery. And there's beauty in both of them. I think the only not flaw, but the only fault that we as people fall on or fall in or fall under is that because of this introductory fame that the Smith deck possesses versus the more mysterious fame that the Thoth possesses, the Smith always gets given the label, at least in my experience, to whatever kind of person I came across using the Smith, as a simply easy deck, like, oh, there's not really much going on there. And sometimes that personally hurts my feelings because I think Pixie put so much in it. And on top of the theatrics, on top of the Shakespeareans, the thespians images, you also have the element of synesthesia, isn't it? That she used to create it. So to get to that, like the Ten of Swords that you showed us at the beginning, to get to that through synesthesia, like what a process, what a miracle.
Maybe you should explain what that is if someone doesn't know.
It's a very good point, Emily. I mean, I'm not an expert, but my comprehension is you can see colors through hearing music. That's my basic comprehension of it. Obviously, Pixie being an artist, constantly exposed. To be an artist is to be, to some level, always constantly exposed to music. And music is the highest source of inspiration, people say, isn't it? So I guess, like, besides the directions received from Arthur, from Edward, from Waite, will I have to do that all the time? Arthur, Edward, Waite. It can be like a pop song. Besides those directions, there is also the divine inspiration that comes from her natural gifts, I suppose.
Yeah,
but even when you
absolutely.
are working with the cards, the decks feel different. The vibration, the frequency when you are reading the cards, it changes dramatically from one deck to another. I think both of
Yeah,
them
I agree.
tap into different frequencies, and you communicate, and sometimes the message, even if the same card, it differs the message. I think you have to be like aligned and attuned to the vibration of each deck in order to connect with that
How
deck.
do you feel
Myself,
that them two differ, as in, like, what for you said there's a vibration and there's a difference.
yeah,
What's the
but
vibration of the Thoth deck for you, and what's the
yes.
vibration for the Smith deck for you?
For me, the thing is, I'm extremely sensitive to energies and to vibrations, and it's part of my daily job, working with energies and vibrations. So sometimes I found the Thoth card too much, too strong. I found that sometimes it's like taking from me, It's a deck for me very demanding. It's a deck sometimes that
The Thoth deck has taken
Oh dear.
Adriana.
yes, and sometimes I find a little bit of resistance between the deck and myself, because probably it's the fear of letting me myself. It's a deck that is demanding a lot, like submission, that you have to submit to the card to bring the message across. The White-Smith, I think that the other one I found is more pleasant, softer, is more like childlike, maybe because the images are not abstract. They are your little figurines, something like that make it more like connecting to you, probably in a more charming and soft way than the Thoth. The Thoth, to me, sometimes I have the deck,
There's a
I
bit of
cannot
an
even
innocent,
open
I
it.
suppose. That's what you're
Yes,
saying, Adriana.
yes. So to me, the Thoth, sometimes I have like some aversion, not because of it's because the vibration is quite strong, and sometimes is, what can I say, working with shadows and
It's pretty
darkness as
raw.
well, that doesn't light with the light. Yeah, it's unfiltered. Yeah. That
How
is
about
my
you,
personal.
Amelie? How
Which
about
one?
you? Yeah. How do you feel them, the decks, and the difference energetically?
Energetically, I do prefer reading with the Thoth deck. I really like the different layers, and I find it very interesting in a sense of like symbolism and it also like triggers, because there's so many different lines and colors and geometry. Sometimes it just triggers like a shape that I haven't seen, or it's just for that specific reading. I find it more difficult with the Smith deck because the pictures they're very like they just depict scenes, so they're quite straightforward and very like human-like, so to say. It's very, yeah. I do agree with Luigi, where I think that the Smith deck, it is being said as an easier or simpler, but there's a lot of symbolism in them as well. I think a lot of people might not see, because it's so cleverly kind of hidden, but it's in plain sight. But also you kind of need to know what this different symbols stand for. Well, I feel like the Thoth deck is almost like they've taken like the Golden Dawn, but they kind of showed it all. It's kind of like bare it all. While things have been a little bit more hidden, I find with like the Thoth deck, it's just there. But we might not be able to see it because we might not have knowledge of all these symbols and lines and things. There are so many books. And I think that's another thing. People feel like the Thoth deck is a bit daunting because there is a lot of knowledge that you can read, a lot of books, and there's so much you can learn, but you don't have to do it. But it's great if you do, if you're interested in it. And I think it can be a bit daunting for a lot of people. I like both of them, but I do prefer the Thoth deck because it's straight to the point, and I feel like it doesn't give you the frills. It's easier to read for other people with the Smith deck because it kind of like makes you express things softer. Like Adriana said, is a little bit, it can make you express things softer. Well, I find the Thoth deck is just raw and straight to the point. So if you're not careful, you might say something a little bit be too eager and and people might find it a little bit scary, but it's not scary. What about yourself, Lynn?
Well, for me, I also prefer the Thoth deck to read with, but like there's one thing about the Smith deck also that I want to mention, because it is like the biggest deck or the most popular deck in a way. And because of it being that, it's also inspired a lot of or most of the other decks that are out there. Like if you pick up any tarot deck out there, some are really some of them, there's an artist who's actually made their own version or their own thing, their own spin, but it's kind of rare. Like most are based off of the Smith deck with the symbolism. No matter, some go more into depth because they actually know also what they're doing, and some it's just like pretty art basically, just to have that mentioned. But it's mostly them, and it's really rare to find a deck that is based off of the Thoth deck. I only have one so far. There's more, I'm sure, but I know of one, and I have one that is based off the Thoth deck. So this is much rarer. What I do appreciate about the Smith is also like what you say. It's easier to get access to, and through that also, like, I have some of my favorite decks are obviously also more so based off of the Smith deck, but with different vibes, a different energy to them. So I love reading with those. But when I read for others, or like especially if it's on a professional level, I do go back to the Thoth deck almost, I think, 100%. If I read for friends, I can switch it up, but I do prefer the Thoth deck. And but that has not been a thing before I got like better with the cards. Like I've grown up with a Thoth deck. My mom had it, and it was the only deck that she had. So I was very like familiar with the images, although not so much, the symbolism or anything. The images are very familiar, very in my life. But I did find them hard. Like as a child also, like I did feel there's something creepy almost about them and a bit hard to access. And then if you have then suddenly the Smith deck, and it's like, oh, this is much easier to intuit off in the beginning, I feel, when you start out learning. But I think my sense or my intuition somehow flipped or changed, because now I feel it for me, the scenes are very in my face. The scenes of the Smith, they're quite in my face. And while with the Thoth, it's that energy, and that energy that the card portrays, that it's giving off, and that I understand, like also where Adriana was coming from, that it's very powerful. But I feel like I tap much better into that than the theater scenes. But that's for me personally, because I know some people are amazing. They pull one, like a Smith deck, and then they go completely off of the picture as well. They intuit other things into it as well that isn't necessarily on the image. You know, it works. I mean, tarot, it works with any deck as long as you have a connection to it. I have more so a connection to the Thoth them to the Smith, if it's between the two of them.
Does this mean that is like 2 against 2 here? Because I'm not sure which one Luigi prefers, but I have a feeling.
Let's see, Luigi, what about you?
So it's difficult to say preference because my reasoning is a bit more boring and a bit more Capricornian than the reasons that you provided. So I use mostly the Smith, but that's because it's the first deck that was ever given to me, you know, and I'm like a duck, you know, if I imprint. So I'm sure that if the first deck that I was given would have been the Thoth deck, today I would be standing in front of you virtually, I suppose, but I would be talking about, the Thoth deck, it's my roots, it's my core, it's my engine. So this is purely like destiny, I suppose. And that's why I try to serve it at the best of my abilities, because I think nothing is circumstantial. No coincidences, everything is meant to be within reason. That there's room for debate and argumentation, etc. But you know, my friend that introduced me to the realm of tarot, she gifted me with this radiant Smith deck, and it came into my hands, and it's still here with me today. It's not, touch wood, it's not damaged yet, it's not broken, it's not lost. Touch wood, touch wood, touch wood, touch wood. Now talking about it makes me anxious, you know, like losing that beauty, the beautiful root that I have with it. Talking about the loss of it, not talking about it. It's beautiful. So yeah, I guess I use more of the Smith than I do the Thoth, but I love the Thoth equally. And I think I don't know if it's worth mentioning, and hopefully will not confuse anyone too much. I think because we know, at least the four of us and many other people beyond the four of us, we know that tarot is a formula. Like it's many things. You can summarize tarot, but one word that you can use to describe tarot is the word formula. So I think so long as you know the formula or you act upon the formula, you could be using a Thoth, you could be using a Smith, you could be using a Briscola, if for the Italians that are listening, you know, you could be use any given deck of cards, and it wouldn't matter. When I say wouldn't matter, simply means that you can still make magic, you can still perform miracles. Like I think all of you said in your own terms, in your own words, like every individual vibrates differently, every individual channels differently. But yeah, probably given the chance, like if they say, oh, what deck do you want to grab? I will always go and grab the Smith. Additionally, also because I think Pixie also came into my visions, and I still haven't met with Frieda, for example. Also, was it Gianna? No, Gianna, you couldn't be there. Amelie, remember that when we met in London, we also witnessed her chimney, you know, at
Yes.
Treadwell's bookshop. So
Yes.
I've gone there so many times, and now I feel every time that I go there, the more I go there, the more I feel this stronger draw or connection, or like the music that Pamela listened to create the deck has been played in that room, in front of her chimney, in front of her fireplace, there and then. So I think Destiny wanted me to, you know, thrive with this deck, but as person that likes to identify as versatile as possible, I like to think that I can just grab any deck and make it work. But that's the one that I
I
have the
think you
longevity
can.
with.
I
Thank
think you
you.
can. I do. I don't think that it's like because you prefer a deck that's the only deck you're going to work with. I think everyone has like a connection either with the actual deck that you have or a connection with like what you've seen first. I think that's like for your mom having the Thoth deck was the first deck that you know that you've seen. I think that's a big impact, specifically when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And also being gifted a deck from someone special, that's also a big thing. And I think that makes a very big impact on what you kind of prefer. But this doesn't mean that you can use, I don't know, 100 different decks.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's
that
my
totally.
point, because I did the course, but I didn't finish because I think anyway. They with Louis Hay, you know, the publisher, they had a tarot course where they have like X amount of very famous tarot readers and tarot teachers, and each one of them was surprised, but Louis Hay is publishing their own deck. But sometimes, obviously, they explain the class with their own deck. Also, they're promoting, and it's more like a commercial. For me, it was more a commercial thing for them to promote their own deck above anyone else. But when you see in their decks, it's exactly the same thing. It's the same. There is no really a more explanation, or they simplify, maybe they change the image or the person and so on. So for me, these two is still like the root of both of them, because the thought is completely the opposite and very different to the other one, but they still having power and the synergy and the energy. You can feel with thought, I feel the Alistair's presence, sometimes it's like feeling his presence here. And it's for that I get a little bit intimidated. But I don't know what you feel about everyone now creating their own tarot deck. I don't know, probably I'm a classic. I'm respectful of the creation of other people. I think Luigi should create his own deck because he has a lot of information, a lot of symbolism, a lot of things to bring new to people. But as I see
Now
now,
she has to find his female counterpart to
I see something going on here.
he
Amelie's
has the
also
female
creating
side of
good.
himself as well.
Luigi, you wanted to jump in there. I think you wanted to say something.
Too many people
Yeah,
creating
no,
a lot of decks that are very commercial, in my opinion.
possibly. To that point, and to many points that were mentioned just now, I wanted to add a couple of pearls, if I can call them that humbly. And you guys tell me what you think as well. You, Adriana, brought up the conversation about the many other decks, present in the world, etc. Has anybody come across the transparent deck?
Yes, I've seen
Yes.
it like online, and I was so interested, and like obviously because it's so different, I wanted it. I do not own it yet, but it's
It's
a very
been in my
different
wish
way
list
of reading.
forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That'd
I
be
don't
really
own it
cool.
either, but it was just making me think about that's a really unique. Not to take away from any creator of decks out there. I'm sure that your decks are all beautiful and fantastic and amazing, but I'm bringing in the conversation the transparent tarot deck because in there, the creator, the wonderful, wickedly talented Emily Carding, she created like these transparent cards where the images like they get combined with one another, and depending on what comes out in a reading, you can get millions, if not billions, of different messages that are being channeled. I think that's a very unique deck out there that I'm aware of, at least. I'm sure there are more, but I thought it was worth mentioning because I don't know how many of you, like you said, you all came across it. None of us probably own it yet, but that's a really unique spin to the tarot formula, I suppose.
Yeah, it's also, I think, because nowadays you can make cards see-through. Back in the day, you had the print on paper,
good
but
point.
now you
Yeah.
can actually make them
You can do
see-through.
it.
So it's a really cool way of like a different dimension almost. But
Yeah.
it made me think of another deck that I've seen. I don't remember now who made it, but someone made like basically the Smith deck, but they made it bigger so it's more square, and they filled in the scenes around it, which I find really interesting.
So cool.
That because you can see like the scene, but then
They
they kind of filled in, expanded the actual view, so you can see more of like things that going on around. And I find that really interesting too. Maybe not so much from like, I guess it helps because you get a different kind of scene when you're reading it. I just thought it was like a really fun thing to do, just to kind of like go and expand that.
And then you also go on.
Nope, I was done.
Oh, okay. No, I was gonna say, I think it might be possible to do it with the Thoth, at least with the majors. But in the Smith, you also get the beautiful versions of the after and the before tarot. Have you guys come across those?
Yes, I own them, or versions of them. I think they're probably not the originals.
No,
but
they're not.
I have them. No, I mean, but I have them. It's quite funny. It's like with the after, I think the fool is like falling down the stoop and stuff. It's really cool to have them like lined up next to each other and see what or what somebody imagined happens. In the 5 of Cups, where you normally have. No, in the 4, I think it's the 4 of Cups. So where you have but where you have like the man standing next to the river. it's a 5,
Yeah,
right? When
the
he's like
Five
all
of
like
The
kind of
Cups.
5,
depressed.
yeah.
Yeah. So the 5 of Cups, he's like standing depressed at the river. And I think in the before, there was, I think it's the before, where somebody is like drowning in the river and passing him by. And he was like, oh, and then in the now, he's basically all depressed because I guess he didn't help him. And then in the after, I don't remember what it was, but it's, yeah,
That's
it's
so
an
funny. I've
interesting,
never seen that one.
yeah,
No,
I
look
should
into
probably
it.
grab them.
That's so
We will.
funny.
I mean, we wanted to do some episodes where we explore different decks, actually. So that would be a good thing for one of those to just go through the after before, because I have them so I can visually show you, and then we can talk about them.
Yeah,
That would be
I
Yeah,
great.
got
that would
I
be
got
really
them too.
cool.
Yeah.
Let's
So
make
yeah,
a
great.
mental
So we will.
note.
Let's do that.
And
But on
there was
the note
something.
of like.
Oh, go on.
Oh yeah, no, it's
No, no,
just
no, go on.
because we're talking about different decks that have like a different spin to them. I find that the Wild Unknown
Oh,
tarot,
yes.
yeah, is also one that has a very different energy to it. And I don't read with it very often, or I have not read with it very often. But like the first reading I did, it did something to my brain. Like I felt it so differently, and you have to intuit in a completely different way as well. And I don't know what it is, but there's something in those cards that is different from the others. That's the Wild Unknown. And my little version.
Yeah, I have it somewhere
Yeah.
as well, but I just haven't used it for so long.
Yeah, I really
I
like it.
used
Like I
the
have the High
Oracle.
Priestess.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's
That's
the High
Oh,
beautiful.
Priestess,
wow.
for example. Yeah, she's a white tiger. Yeah, and I mean the majors are one thing because it's all based off of animals, but the minors also, I feel there's just something in the energy of like, for example, this is the 4 of the Wands. Just some way of how she uses or how they use colors and also
Yes.
geometry again. It's just doing something. And when you have it all like laid out in like a reading, it's just, yeah,
Just
it's
look very
creates something
organically.
very particular. Good reminder. I want to go back into. Yes, very
I was
beautiful.
about to say I really like her art style because it's all by hand and it's not everything is very like jaggedy and very natural and very organic and it just ties everything together. I really like that.
It's very shamanic. Like, people feel
Amelie
like,
had
or
very
I've heard it's very
interesting decks as
shamanic.
well, isn't it, Amelie? You have a few. I
Which
remember
ones
you
of
showed
them?
me a few that they were wonderful.
You know what? I can
Quirky.
do. I have quite a few. I'm very like I'm not like a tarot. I'm not a tarot collector, as in like I collect loads of stuff. But if there's something that I'm really into, I get it. And sometimes if it's out of print, I try to find it, which is really bad. Don't do this. It's a disclaimer because it can get really expensive and frustrating if you can't find it. But it's like I get these, you know, like I get really into something. But because we're talking about Thoth and the Smith deck, I personally really like, I even have it here, I really like the Heaven and Earth deck, and I'm quite sure it's still in print and it's not like super expensive one. But the reason why I like it is because it has the kind of depiction like the Smith deck would have, but also it's kind of based on the Thoth deck.
Okay.
And I mean, just like, I mean, I guess it's pretty
Fusion.
dark as such, but the actual art style, well, the art style is not the same at the Smith deck, but the depictions are kind of like the same thing, you know. You've got basically the same kind of depictions, but underneath here, you also have the symbols that you would have on the Thoth deck. So it kind of like combines both of them in one deck, which I really like, because that's something that you don't get in them. I guess you do get the different symbols, like in the Empress, for example. I guess you get few symbols, but here you really get like all of them just at the bottom. So I really like this deck, and it feels a little bit pagan and a little bit, you know, medieval somehow. And I like it, and it's dark, and I really like the color scheme. But I'm sure that it could be a bit dark for a lot of people. But that's something I like. To me, it's like a twofer for me. It's like combining
Luigi,
them two
you
together.
wanted to say something.
There's more wood that I wanted to throw into the fire,
Yes,
if that's okay.
Go ahead.
One, I think is gonna go into a whole rabbit hole that we don't have to go to, but I think it's worth mentioning. So I'll start with the other one instead. I think based on our conversations and based on what we know of the history of the decks and our experiences with the decks, help me please, deities of grammar and speech. One thing that I really appreciate, I suppose, about the Thoth, and this is going into the realm of speculation. So this is pure speculation and a bit of entertainment on my end and hopefully on the end of everybody who listens. But there is this theory, there is this rumor that although it's a very inclusive, user-friendly deck, the Smith deck, there were certain choices that intentionally aimed at hiding the deeper meanings, the deeper esoteric secrets, intentional. And again, this is us speculating about it. Whether what I appreciate about the Thoth deck, and Amelie, I think you brought this up at some point during your introduction of your relationship with the Thoth deck and your history with the Thoth deck. Crowley simply said, let them all have the secrets, let them all have the magic and the power and the knowledge. And that's definitely something that I celebrate about the Thoth deck. Because there is this whole, what's the word, lesson, wisdom, teaching, tradition. Should the wisdom, should the knowledge go to everyone or should it not? And then but not giving it to everyone, you create gatekeeping and exclusivity versus inclusivity. But then there is also the question or the matter of are people ready to receive so and so and so, and who is it that decides when are they ready, when they're not. But that was just me bringing up the
but
agency of the Thoth.
Yeah, and I feel like the way that I experience people who are reading tarot, there's this thing with like, if people are not ready for the Thoth, they're not gonna be able to tap into it. Like a lot of witches and others that I know from here, none of them use the Thoth. They're like, yeah, I've used it once, but it's not for me, And I'm like, yeah, I get it, I get why, but
I take
it's
note.
it's like. Yeah, but speaking of the clandestine kind of symbols, because I had the 10 of Swords earlier, and I don't remember exactly you can probably help me out, but there's this hand gesture that we presume man who's lying stabbed on the ground is doing. And this is something that would, most of us wouldn't know or even zone in on that, because it's just something that you either know or you don't know. And see, I off the top of my head forgot, but it means something like that. It's not the end, but there's I don't remember what the word was.
Yeah,
Do you remember?
I don't remember the name. I don't remember the name of the sign
gesture,
because it's something that they use in Hebrew rituals and celebrations, and it's a Hebrew sign. Well, when I say Hebrew, it's a Jewish, it's something used in the Jewish tradition. The people that, like the priests, I suppose, the rabbis, they use it during their ceremonies. I think that's having it in the Ten of Swords connects it to one, the Hierophant, and two, to the power of the sun, because you will see that the Hierophant uses the same hand gesture, and I forget the name of the gesture because it's a Hebrew name. I think I'll look it up in a sec, but basically it represents the union between the spiritual realm and the earthly realm. And I guess underlying wisdom and truth, let's use the word truth of the tarot, is to teach us or to allow us to connect the realms, isn't it? Like we, as the physical vessels, we use the deck and we channel the knowledge and the power and the intuition of the divine realm. So you can say that a tarot reader performing a reading is one of the many beautiful images of balance and equilibrium between the macro and the macrocosm.
Absolutely. How about we bring up to maybe round it up a little bit, to bring up some examples of cards that are very distinctly different, or maybe our favorites, or whichever, that are distinctly different between the Thoth and the Smith deck, and just talk a tiny little bit about those. So maybe, yeah, we'll get 4 cards, I guess. Amelie, do you have some favorites?
Which ones are we choosing?
Oh, yeah.
Which ones are we choosing? Favorites that would be very different. I mean, the card that we spoke about was Lust and Strength. I don't know if you want to go into that.
Yes.
I mean, we can all discuss it because, but we can start with that. We'll all discuss it because
that's the easiest.
That's the easiest.
I've got them. I mean, I've got them too here. If that's any help.
I have them right in front of me as well, so I got them double up. Just different versions, of the different versions of the same. I mean,
I'm not sure if we have to censor them.
Hope not. It's art. There's boobs, but I mean, one difference obviously is that, but it's a whole system of like the strength being the 8. It's called strength in the Smith deck, and it has the number 8. While in the Thoth deck, it's called lust, and it has the number 11 because they did a switcheroo. We have not talked about the switcheroo, but that is a big topic, and we don't have to get into that. But there's a thing where the major arcana does not follow the same cycle in a sequence, yes, and this is a point. So in the strength card, the 8, we have famously this depiction of a woman. Well, there's different interpretations. Is she fighting the lion? Is she taming the lion? Whatever she's doing, but there's a woman in progress with a lion or a beast, but it seems quite peaceful and well, not as outrageous erotic as you must say that, in the lust card. And here you have the Babylonian, you have like the beast with the many heads. And oh my God, there's so much symbolism in this whole card. I can't even get into it, right? But there's so much going on in this card. And obviously it's outrageously sexual or
Very
erotic
Crowley.
anyway. Very Crowley, yes. But it's the woman who has all the power, like in the devil card where it's, have that very phallic symbolism. But here's the yes man, but the yes woman. Like she is just doing whatever she wants. She's riding life. She's riding, she is the source of all life, sacred and unsacred at the same time. So there's a lot of, I feel like a lot of difference. Like you don't, like I feel like this one is very, very sweet and tame in comparison. And this one is basically telling you to embrace yourself and be the woman or person that you're meant to be, like naked and unashamed, basically. Not necessarily literally, but being like naked and unashamed, being who you are, having your power, embracing that. So there's a lot to unpack. But you have probably also opinions about those two.
Well, I think by showing them and by also talking about the sequence change that we don't necessarily need to touch into much detail now, I think that's something that we forgot to mention in all of the discussions that we had. One of the core differences between the Smith and the Thoth, like the Thoth will have a heavy influence, will be Thelema, isn't it?
Yes, right. Of course, Crowley's religion or faith or belief system, if you will. Of course, the entire that is in the entire deck. Of course, the symbolism of his
an additional layer of beauty for the Thoth is definitely the Thelemic flair.
Yes. So you have a lot of deities, for example, the Thelemic deities that are slightly based off of the Egyptian deities. For example, like Nuit, Horus. There's a bunch of them. Crowley especially was very fond of Nuit.
Rahurquit.
Beautiful. He was very fond of Nuit, the goddess of night, and so she stars in a few of the cards. Most famously, maybe in the star card. If I can find it, I can show it.
And the first dictate, not is that what's the word? When somebody dictate a chapter, narrator, the first narrator of the first chapter of the Book of the Law as well.
Yeah, something you channel. There she is, beautiful Nui. She
does
wonderful.
She does resemble. I'm not entirely insinuating that they are the same, but she does resemble physically and aesthetically, I suppose, to an extent, the Scarlet Woman from the last card. Like in the hair, the bodily figure.
I mean, yeah.
To an extent.
I mean, you have there's actually some parallels in this. Is there the posture, like you said, they both have like in a sense, grails.
Yeah, they hold the cup.
So they're holding grails or cups.
I'm trying to find the universe card as well, because I find that has also similarities.
The lovers one,
but I wanted to try it.
It changed a lot, Okay,
oh yes,
the lover.
You can talk about the lovers if you like.
I think in this one is more a Christian-based, mythology. That is Adam and Eve, and is and the serpent
and the deck,
angel. Yes. So it is like the relationship between the first sin, like the falling of and from paradise and so on. So obviously, if we have like a Christian base that we all have, like a Catholic one, the lovers here is more like taboo, it's more intense, But with Thoth card, first of all, they are not naked, like a king and queen. In the Thoth one, that is very related to Hermetica and other cultures that are not based in Christianity, so Sumerian or Egyptian, or he used a lot of symbolism from other mythologies that make it the meaning and the sense a little bit different. I think there are more sensuality and more erotism and more sexual liberation in Thoth's cards than in the other.
I mean, just found the other star card just to for the viewers of our show rather than the listeners. And so it was like a very different energy I feel between Nuit, which is the Thoth one with all the purples and the blues, and her just also being like one with the universe basically. And then you have the star card, which also has a lot of symbolism in this card, but it's a different feel, a different vibe you're getting from them. Yeah.
It's intriguing that they're both facing the same direction. I never noticed that by having them, next to each other.
Technically, the Nuit,
face,
she's facing upwards into this side, and she's facing downwards. So they're kind of in a diagonal, opposing, but their knees are facing the same, like the bodies are facing the same direction.
Yeah.
I like also that how Nuit is looking up into the cup that she's emptying, and then the Star Lady is looking down into the cup that she's emptying into the pool. So they're kind of, it's like they're focusing on different aspects of their.
But we see Thoth is based a lot on the Hermetic laws, so as is above is below, and so on, and all the vibration laws and so on, all the 7 laws that they have in Hermetica. That obviously it will have a
It's called the Thoth deck.
It will have
it's called the Thoth
a
deck,
different vision and a different, always like presenting opposites together. The other one is I think is more ruling between Hebrew or Catholicism. Is more like Christian oriented.
Yes, but let's just mention that. Why is it called the Thoth deck? Because we talked about why the RWS called RWS, because it's producer or editor publisher. There we go, publisher and publisher and man and woman, or the mind and the hand who created it, I guess. While Thoth
there
deck
is actually no
there's actually no
name to RWS.
It's just that's the Rider-Waite-Smith. And then you have the Thoth deck. It's not called the Crowley Harris deck. It's the Thoth deck.
I actually didn't even think about this before. Like, actually, it doesn't have a name.
Yeah.
It's
uses
just
the names of others. Yeah.
It's just the names of the creators. Well, obviously, we can talk about what we know of Thoth, Egyptian deity of ceremonial magic, the giver of the alphabet, or scriptures at least.
Knowledge, right?
Knowledge and I guess if it's okay to say that, like the Egyptian version of Hermes or the Egyptian version of Mercury. So I think, and also like the name Thoth starting with T, which I think plays something in the mix, in the formula, when you consider the famous book released by the Golden Dawn, book T, and tarot starting with the letter T, and obviously one day when we explore it, the letter T having several layers of meanings that we can explore in the future.
Oh yeah. There's
Let's
a lot of
have
I say.
T, yeah, it's Bruce.
Spill
Let's
the
get a cup
tea,
of
spill
tea.
the tea.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, all right.
Another, like, I have two cards that I find very different. We don't have to go like really deep into them, but I think it's like worth mentioning.
Yes.
The Temperance card and the Art card, because they're like completely different as well.
Yes.
As in, like, completely different.
Yeah.
Similar posture of the main person, but yes, everything else is just,
Absolutely. And the Art card is one of my favorite cards as well.
Art or Temperance?
I don't know. Is there a reason or not? I don't know if there's a specific reason, but I'm just extremely drawn to it. And there's also like these little spider webs on there in the background, which I really like.
I
And
mean, it's the
also I find
alchemist's card, you know, as an alchemist. I would say you're kind of an alchemist
it is
yourself, using elements to create things, you know. I mean, a lot of artists are in there, you know, in a sense. So that would make
Your
sense
beautiful
that
creations.
the creations,
my
yes.
creations. It's like when you get lost in the making, in the actual creation. I think that's what the art card kind of reminds me of. Is like when you're creating something and you're in the middle of it. It's almost like the beginning and the end, but it's like that in between where you get lost and you just like create. It's a very interesting feeling, or like not
quite
I can't describe it with
Yeah,
words.
it's quite
Yeah.
sacred. I just had this earlier today because I was finishing up a story that I've written, and that is one of the things where thank you. I finished the revision steps when I was ready. But I was reading, I was revising it, and I was like, this is not. It's not me. Like, it's not me. It's not me who created this. It came through me, maybe, but it was not me. And like going and revising it, I was like going through all the sensation, emotions, through everything, and I'm like, what is this thing? It's not. I didn't make it. Somebody else. I mean, you know, maybe somebody else did, but
It's amazing when you have
it's so
that feeling,
crazy.
because
Yes, it just flows and it
you
comes
look
and
at
it goes.
something that
Yeah.
when you look back at something that you've done, you find it also like, how did I create it? Because a lot of things you think, like when you look at things that other people did, you're like, oh, this is beautiful. How did they create it? But you can detach from that because it's something that someone else created, and you're like, they must be super talented.
Yeah.
But when that happens to you and you create
Yes.
something and you look at it and you're like, wow, this is amazing. But hold
What
on,
happened?
I
Yeah, it's like,
created it.
yeah. I had the same. I had the same feeling, and walking afterwards, and just going through it. I'm like, what? Like, I was just like, what happened? And I also thought this thing that other artists, when you're like, oh my god, you made such amazing thing, and then they're like more like, well, you know, I'm just using a brush and I'm just making some strokes, and this thing came out. But then you actually have this feeling. It's just like, I don't know what happened. It just happened.
Yeah, I don't
Can't
think
explain
that.
it.
I don't think that
Huzzah.
artists should have to explain how they did it.
No, it was just tapping
It
into
doesn't have to
something.
be
I do have a question.
exactly.
No,
You
but I
just
think
like
Tapping into
dive
something.
into the rabbit
I have
hole
a
and then you come
question,
out.
Luigi. What is the
Yeah.
go
difference?
for it.
Because in the tradition of what is called pages, you know, but in Thoth they get upgraded to princess or princesses, you know. So what is the difference between, obviously, not in the monarchy style, but I think the force change when it's a prince than when it's a page.
I assume pages are the princesses,
No, but in
Princesses.
not
Thoth
the
is
prince.
prince.
So like the
Yes.
pages of the Smith deck. No, for the pages, it's the
But what
princesses
they say
of
here
the
is
Thoth.
Prince of Wands. It's not the same that this one.
And the Prince
Of-
King Knight thing is against a whole different conversation.
No, it's not. So for the prince, it will be, well, this is another topic for another episode.
That is another
Yes,
topic.
that is another topic.
Because
So in the way that
Thoth we
we've
have
been
princesses and princes
taught through Tarot Mysticism Academy, the princes
of
of the Thoth will
king.
be the equivalent
Yes,
of the
that's what
kings
my
of the
confusion.
Smith.
Yes, the prince is the king, and the princesses are the pages. Okay.
Allegedly.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, definitely princesses are the pages. The matter of the princes and the kings, we can discuss it when we feel brave
think we
enough and
should
we had a
probably
coffee.
I think we should probably do like a whole episode of just the Thoth deck and maybe a whole episode of just the RWS at some
Yeah.
point,
Okay,
because
so
there's
Yeah.
just
in Thoth
so
there
much to
is no
talk about,
king.
and that would be really
Yeah.
cool too.
Absolutely.
Well, there is, but not by title. The king is the prince,
Yeah.
but they don't give it the title of the king. But if you, like, fun fact for all of us, including the people that are listening, if you were to go and read about Book T, you know, released by the Golden Dawn themselves, they will describe the knights under the title of king, which creates a hell of a lot of confusion. And again, we can discuss it in the future. But yeah, like Crowley and Frieda, they did not include the royal title of kings to any of their core cards. For good reasons, I guess.
All right. Cool. Thanks. To round it up, or to go. Yeah, you had a question, Luigi.
No question, but I just wanted to bring you bring you to your attention just one little reflection that I hope that I'm sure you guys will be appreciative of. Hopefully, the people listening and tuning, they will indulge us. When we were talking about our resonance with a particular deck, whether it was Thoth or Smith, I just noticed something that I find very beautiful and equally very uncanny. So we have, as people may know, and obviously as we know, the initial of our names are LALA, isn't it? And creating this beautiful image again of equilibrium and balance and harmony. And each L is attached to a Thoth and a Smith, and each A is attached to a Thoth and a Smith. Really, and additionally, we're not gonna open this right now, but to give everybody a sniff of this beautiful notion, like if we even look at our letters and we take them in consideration to the tarot, there is a beautiful relationship between the letter L and the letter A. Again, hopefully you know what I'm hinting at, but we can discuss that in the future.
Lovely
But
observation, Luigi. Yeah.
I know I couldn't help myself. When I saw it, I was like, what's going on here? Because we got LALA, but also we got Smith Thoth.
Yes.
Smith Thoth.
Yes. Yeah, true. That is great. Yeah, it's amazing. Great observation. All right. Well, thank you so much. There was a lot again for one episode. And as usual, we have this little tradition. Yes, we have this little tradition that we pull a card in secret in the beginning of the episode. And this time, the honor went to Adriana, so she will now reveal the card to us, and then in plenum, all four of us will discuss the card a little bit. So let's see, what was today's card, Adriana?
I drew from the Smith card, and is the Four of Cups, but also I took it out for the Thoth one.
Oh, the Four of Cups.
So you see, there is a lot of difference in between.
Okay.
This card is always a little bit emblematic because it can have different connotations. So this card, the Four of Cups, is related to the High Priestess and to Cancer. So it's the Moon and the Chariot that are related to this card. And so it is like self-contained, is a lot of water, a lot of emotions. And I think it's what it had happened today in our little discussion, because it's always like you can interpret it like he's so self-contained that doesn't need any other thing, that whatever they brought to them, to this person here, to this young man here, he doesn't really need, but as well you can interpret it like this person is unsatisfied, stagnant, and unable to receive the gift from the universe. So it depends how you interpret the position of this individual, the personality. If you are reading to someone, if there are other cards alongside, you can determine exactly the ambiguity of the both messages. But as well as you have the Moon and the High Priestess is very restrictive, very passive. And Cancer and in the Chariot is something that's protecting. So it's like an invitation to go deep inside of yourself. And despite of the distraction that the outdoors brings to you, the outside of you, you have to take in consideration your inner compass and your inner truth. However, when you see the Thoth card, the Four of Cups is called luxury. So luxury in this context is probably giving yourself the luxury to choose whatever you want to be. So it opens up another dimension, another sense, another source of interpretation with the Thoth card, because there is not a human element. That the card doesn't limit you, to a character that you have to identify what is inside of his heart or what is in his mind. Here is giving you just luxury, and it's like the choice, like the abundance, like is emanating, is like bringing all this energy and that light and all that luxurious abundance that you can give yourself the choice to, So related to the discussion we have today, each one we're four, so 4 cups. We have the luxury to choose which deck we like the most.
That's true. Yeah.
And sometimes we sit under the tree and we don't know which one to choose.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to see both approaches, what interpretation they can give you. One is go towards the individual, the other one is to what is in offer, right? So yes, I think that they complement each other, but equally it represents the what as you want to feel it. It represents all the individual. If it has, if self-contained, if it too much water, so too much emotions in there that it has to deal with that, or it simply go towards thought that is the luxury of choice, or the luxury to have plenty. So it's two different messages from two different decks. I don't want.
Yeah, and I mean, in the Smith deck, where you see like it's a man sitting under a tree with like 3 cups in front of him, and he's kind of in this crossed arm, crossed legs position, while a 4th cup is being presented to him by a godly hand, or the cloud hand, as we have it often in the Smith deck. Just saying the cloud hand. While in the Thoth deck, you have much also more brighter colors, and these 4 cups that are just brimming with the water, the flow of the water. And the thing is, I mean, we have the number 4, right? So the 4 is like one of the most, or it's the most stable number in the tarot. It brings stability, but at the same time, what stability does, it also brings you a sort of a stagnancy. It's very square. So it's always like this idea: is stagnant or is stability something that right now is something that is good for you? Do you need a stability? I mean, if you come from a place where you are like high emotions and everything is just then this card is probably, it would be probably like a breather for you, like almost meditative, where you can just, while, if you're having troubles deciding, or if you're just having, or just been sitting under the tree for too long, it's maybe telling you to get up and do something instead of just like sitting there and like,
it's an invitation. It's an invitation.
Yeah, but to all of the cards, there are different approaches to it, and none of them are neither light or shadow.
If there is, you are content that there is too much choice, you can take the time and stay there. So again, you have different ways how to see it. You have different ways how to feel it, because if we project to what is going on right now in the world, probably it's better to be underneath of the tree and be self-contained on yourself and your soul with your own emotion, protecting yourself, that being distracted by all the things that are presented to you, in the news or social media or whatever. So probably it's an invitation as well to recognize what you feel, what you think is as valuable, and you can take all the time of the world, to be self-contained and do not to rush it. So again, it's another interpretation that you can use it for this card.
What are your thoughts on the 4 of Cups?
I think we spoke about most of it all. I was just thinking about this whole luxury aspect of like a bit putting it onto the Smith deck. I'm like, actually, it's kind of luxury because he gets this cup brought to him, so it is luxury, right? And then I'm like, my brain is mentally insane and silly, but I'm like, what if this is like in heaven, right?
Yeah.
Where this cup is coming from here. So
just thinking
so
that,
you're here.
yeah, that fairy tale
really?
where it's just the fairy tale, or like this tale where you're just like in heaven or whatever, and then all like the grilled chicken just flying around and you're not going right in your mouth, and ambrosia everywhere, and like this, there's like this, I think it's a fairy tale, I don't remember, but there's like from my childhood, I remember there was this story where it's just like you were in heaven, and it's like really just these chicken legs coming and being like, oh, you can just eat them, and cups of like wine, and it's like, so it's that, yes, literally being brought to you, that cup of wine.
I was just thinking like, as in, because I had them next to each other like this, and I thought like, this is where the water is kept. That's like the luxurious, whatever, water, whatever. But this is where this cloud comes from. So it was here, got some water, and then
it just went like a little drone.
Yeah.
The 4th cup in the Smith
Transport
contains
drone.
the 4 of cups of the Thoth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Luigi?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on your part, Luigi?
No, I think you covered most of it. I think I am overly partial. Is that a good way to say it? Basically, I personally love the Four of Cups, being a highly emotional and highly watery person.
Yeah.
I love that card, because it's just waters galore. And I can appreciate the awareness that one has to take into account when experiencing the energy of the Four of Cups, because one of the flaws that I as a person possess, but any person that belongs to the element of water, would be an element of idleness, I suppose. Maybe even indolence if we want to go there, but we don't have to.
That's a
But yeah,
different
I
card,
personally,
though.
definitely, exactly, but connected,
It's all
partially connected. Even when you think about the number of the card that comes
yeah.
the title on, but that's for another day. No, I love it. I think whenever I see it, I feel reassured. Still considering aspects of shadow and light, but if ever the card comes across, and maybe that's something that I need to interrogate, because I almost gave it like a definite feeling or a definite value. So whenever it comes, I feel reassured without questioning anything. And maybe I should invite some room for questions. But yeah, for the moment, my physical and spiritual experience of the Four of Cups has been a relatively blissful one, to say the least.
I mean, that's the thing about interpreting cards. Like as you unlock your own deck, basically, or your own way of interpreting them, it's really, I mean, it talks through you and through your own language. So if one card means a specific thing for you, then it's not always wrong. Sometimes it might, but it's like very likely that however the system works. But if you see the Four of Cups like that, then if you read for a client, then it's also because the client is supposed to hear what you're interpreting with the card. Unless
Yeah, that's a
suddenly you
good
get a
point.
different inspiration, I mean, it happens because I have my particular cards that I have a very personal connection to, and they mean something for me that is not necessarily traditional. And sometimes it works in a reading for another person. This comes up first, and then sometimes not. Sometimes I go in the other direction, So I feel it's just the symbols that the higher self or consciousness or whatever it is that is actually working through us there. It gives it a language that works
But
through us.
Yeah.
it is a very emotional
Those are the
card. It's
worst.
a very emotional
Ending.
card.
Yeah.
And, so what we do with our emotions or
Yeah. I mean,
how
it's a cups.
confident
It's
are
cups,
we
right?
dealing
So
with emotions, it will determine exactly how we feel about it. So yes, I think it's a beautiful open card that gives you a lot
absolutely.
to ponder and reflect about.
Yeah, I think it's a good card to end
Yeah,
this
it's a good way
episode
to
on.
end the episode. Yes. Well, thank you so much
Yeah.
for tuning in and listening or watching. And see you in the next rabbit hole.
Bye.
Bye.
See you in the next rabbit hole.
We are the voices of the Occultinarium. Welcome to the rabbit holes.